In my own playing and practice, I try to approach just about everything as an extension of the middle register. So if my highest note is way up here, my lowest note is way down here, my goal is to have them all feel like they're right here. Now, this is a concept we'll continue to explore throughout the upcoming chapters, and I give both exercises and conceptual strategies to achieve this goal. As we all know from our lived trumpet experience, our tendency as trumpeters is to play with excess lip tension in the higher registers, but just as often the opposite is also true, to play with not enough lip tension or over-relax in the lower register. To play flexibly and to articulate clearly in the low register with a rich and resonant tone, I find it necessary to maintain my middle register setting throughout. Before diving into the flow studies, which all end with a descending triad, let's see what it feels like and sounds like if we approach it from a middle setting. Here are 2 exercises to help you do this. After setting your metronome to 60, we're first going to play a middle G, but immediately after articulating the note, let it sag, but not so much that the lower partial, the C, pops out. For the second exercise, start by playing a half note G, after taking a hope breath, of course, and on beat 3, after re-articulating, let it sag as you did on the previous exercise. However, this time, when you get to that spot right before the C wants to sound, blow a bunch of air and let that low C honk out. What I hope you will find is that the low C, when approached in this way, is an incredibly resonant and harmonic-rich note, but played with your middle G setting. This exercise can and should be done chromatically down to our lowest F sharp. Now, on to the flow studies, and as you play the descending major triad at the end of each one, be very diligent about staying in your middle setting. In flow studies 1, remember, always use a metronome, always start with your hope breath, and stay in a middle setting throughout. Additionally, be aware of any unnecessary lip tension as you move from the 3rd to the 4th note. Before we move on to flow study 2, I want to briefly talk about the lip flexibilities you'll see preceding each of the upcoming exercises. Years back, I began to notice in my own practice that I would unconsciously end up with excess tension in the ascending portion of the flow studies, and not only in the higher register. This overworking can happen anywhere. This very simple lip flexibility exercise, when done properly, can illustrate the exact relationship between air and lip needed for the ascending line we find in each flow study. So, by following this flexibility exercise immediately with the flow study, we can aim to replicate the feel and balance we discover through the lip flexibility as we play the flow study. Now, with this lip flexibility, it's essential that 1, we move our air immediately, and doing a quick breath pattern can help us figure out what that feels like. So, what we're going to do is the first 3 notes that you'll see, and we're going to do just the air against our hand. So we set our metronome to 120. Two, we need to make sure that we sustain the lower note until the instant of the increase of airspeed. Often our tendency is to slightly increase the lip tension prior to the note change, and we need to avoid this. So again, our metronome. So if you're struggling to find the correct balance in these lip flexibilities, I'd suggest buzzing it on the mouthpiece. When buzzing in your practice, try glissing from the lower note to the higher note, paying close attention to the pitch of the buzz, as the buzz should be in tune, and allow the changes in your airspeed to take you from one note to the other. Then try it again on the trumpet, and in my experience, you will immediately sound better, and this will be easier. And then again on the horn. Now it's time to play Flow Study 2. You'll see that much of the ascending line here is written out chromatically. These chromatic passages are written into many of the following flow studies and are designed to increase the ease with which we move up through the registers as we warm up. In Flow Study 3, we begin to move through what's called the break. We often hear woodwind players and singers talk about their registral breaks, but we have them too, and one of the trickiest ones for us to navigate through begins on C#5 and goes through E5. And if you've never heard about this, you've surely felt it. To maneuver through this break, I find that I need to use a bit more air than I intuitively think I should based on where it is in the grand scheme of our register and our range. So as you're playing Flow Study 3, remember to move your air immediately in the lip flexibility, and in the flow study, lead with your air as you play through the break and stay in your middle setting throughout the entirety of the exercise. As you move on to Flow Study 4, I want you to rely on your airspeed as you move from the third to the fourth note in the lip flexibility, as well as through the ascending chromatic figures. Now, of course, your embouchure will slightly change, and in the flexibilities, your tongue will move, but I want you to try allowing that to happen as a result of your increasing airspeed and your ear truly hearing the pitches you're about to play. More often than not, the lip tension and tongue position will take care of themselves. Finally, Flow Study 5. Here, for the first time, we're starting in the lower register and not beginning right in the middle. So let's take the training wheels off and see how we do. Though you're starting lower, I want you to try setting your embouchure as if you're about to play in the middle register and then just play the lower note. If you're having trouble doing this correctly, try doing one of these first. And that should help. Lastly, after we've played our highest note in this exercise, the tendency can be to over-relax and back off in a way that essentially sabotages our descent. So on the way down, I want you to be equally aware of your airspeed and be sure to keep your air moving.